Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. This week we're going to do some Google Forms tips and tricks. Got a couple of things here about password protecting a Google form. We'll talk about how to do mastery questions, and we'll also talk about how to import scores from a form into Classroom, shuffling questions, and then also adding images for teachers that are interested in doing image-based questions for kids that are in K through 2. So if they need something to see for sight words or something like that. So we're going to jump out here and go straight into the presentation. All right, so we're going to talk first about how you can import scores into Google Classroom from a Google form. And it's pretty easy to do. The one thing that you have to remember when you're doing this is that you have to set up your form as a quiz. So to see how to do that, I'm going to go ahead and open a Google form so that you can see this. And I'll show you a couple of the things that you need to do. Mainly though, set up any questions that you want, multiple choice, true, false, whatever. But go up to this gear at the top right, and in the settings you'll see a quizzes option. And in order for your scores to be able to import into Google Classroom, you have to make your form a quiz. And then you just set up the settings the way that you want them and hit save. And then after that, you'll notice that your questions will have an answer key option where you can click on the correct answer and enter a point value right here. And I've actually already done that with a form here in this classroom. It's just a student information form that I turned into a quiz when I was teaching a workshop. But it shows that I have 20 students that have already taken this quiz. It says 20 done. And so if I click on that quiz, what you'll notice is that the top right, there's an import grade feature that has appeared. And so you're probably wondering how that got there. So back here on this form, if I made this a quiz like I was saying and said, what color is the sky? We'll give it a couple of answers here. Okay, and we'll click answer key. We'll give it a point value, and we'll click the correct answer. And so once you've got your quiz set up like that, then you go back into Classroom and you'll click the Add Assignment option, click Create Assignment, and we'll call this Quiz. And anytime you're adding a Google form as a quiz into a Google Classroom assignment, all you have to do is click the Google Drive icon. I'll go to Recents, and this is the one I'm wanting to use. Click Add, and you'll notice now something that you may not have noticed before is that there is an option here. It will recognize that your form has the quiz options turned on, and it will give you this switch here that enables grade importing. So as long as that switch is turned on when you click Assign, then importing will be available to you. Now, like I said, I've already done that here with this quiz. So since these students have already taken the quiz, I don't have to open up the Google spreadsheet for the quiz and see their scores. I can just go up to the top right here, click Import Grades, and click Import. And it may take a second here because there's 20 kids, and their grades will appear right here in this column over on the left-hand side after the import is done. So it's pretty simple. Saves you the time and hassle of having to enter scores in by hand. And you can see here, this quiz was not set up properly because it says there's 1,001 points available, but the scores are imported there, and you can see that it took them in. And then all you have to do is click the Done box, and it'll check all those, and then you can hit Return, and those students will get their scores back by either an email notification or a pop-up on their mobile device if they have Google Classroom installed to their mobile device. So it's pretty quick and simple. I know that wasn't the best example of how it works, but that's the easiest way for me to show you without having a bunch of people take time to fill out the quiz live here on the webinar. So importing scores, if you've not seen that one before, look for it in Google Classroom. Now, going back to a form here, one of the other things that I wanted to give as a tip was password protecting a form. A lot of teachers have asked me if there's a way to keep kids from taking a quiz in Google Classroom if it's already out there and maybe they're at home sick. And there is a way to do that. What I'll typically do is I will add a question, and I'll call it password. And for this, it has to be a short answer question. And so what I'll do with the short answer question then is I will click this little menu, the more menu here, and click response validation. And I'll say that it has to be text. And I'll say the password is trees with a capital T. And then over here, this is really important. You have to do this. You have to say, if they get it wrong, this is the custom error text, you'll have to say wrong password. Otherwise, the password won't work. And then make this a required question. And then immediately after that question, you're going to enter a section break. So I'll click the add section, and then we'll say begin quiz is the next section name. So now that that's set up, we've got our quiz, we've got the password to get into the quiz, and if they answer it right, then they can go on to the next section. So if I go up to the preview button here, we can see what that looks like. And here I'm going to put in the wrong password. Okay, I spelled that wrong. It says wrong password. So I'm going to put in trees with a lowercase t. Still says wrong password. But if I put a capital T, that's the correct password. I can hit next, and now I can begin the quiz. So that's just a quick and easy way to add a password to a Google form, so that if you have kids that are sick, they can't just launch into Classroom from home, enter the quiz, and then take it open book. I've even told teachers to change the password on the question every hour out of the day, and then don't reveal the password until the kids arrive to class. So hopefully that's a good tip for you. I know a lot of people that I've shown that to have liked that. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can turn a quiz into a mastery quiz, and a lot of people will like this for flipped classroom. Maybe they want to have kids watch a video lecture at home, answer a couple of questions about it, and then talk about it the next day in class. And if you want that quiz to be sort of a mastery quiz where they have to answer the question right before they go on to the next question, you can do that. So for instance, with this one here, immediately after begin quiz, let's say we put in a YouTube video, and we'll look one up for blue sky or something like that, since that's what the question is about. And let's say they have to watch this video before they can answer the question. And immediately after this question, we're going to put a section break that says wrong answer, okay? And then we'll put another section break after that that says correct, and then we'll put the next question after that, you know, what color is dirt? Okay. Now, the idea back here is that on this question, if they get it wrong, okay, now first we have to have turned on an option called go to section based on answer. So if you turn on go to section based on answer and tell it that obviously blue, you know, we know that's the correct answer. We're saying if they answer blue, then they can go on to the section that says correct. If they answer green, then they would go on to the section that says wrong answer. And the same thing for purple, wrong answer. Down here on the wrong answer section, if they end up here, then what we want to happen is if they end up here, we want it to continue back to begin quiz right here. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. Now again, I'll have to put the password in. Okay, the password still working, looks good. And so I'm going to watch the video, say, and then after the video is over, I'll answer green and I'll hit next. And it says wrong answer. So when I hit the next button here, it takes me back to the video and the question. And I can see I still answered green, so I can try blue to see if that's the right answer. When I hit next, it says correct, and then the next question comes up. So that is a nice way for you to create a mastery quiz. Now I know with mastery quizzes, they could continue to guess until they get it right, but more than likely, if they're doing that trial by error type of quiz taking method, they eventually learn something one way or the other, even if they don't think they are. That's a good way to do a mastery quiz, is by using the go to section based on answer. And Angela, who joined us today, said she's used that for a dichotomous key. You can definitely do that with a dichotomous key. It's great for science. You can have kids set up a dichotomous key, or you can set up the dichotomous key and then have specimens laying out and have kids identify the specimens using that form as a dichotomous key. So very, very good tip there. So the next thing that we have is shuffling answers and shuffling questions. You'll notice that when I clicked on the More button for this question, there was shuffle option order down here. And this is a question that I get quite a bit from teachers. They're worried about students possibly cheating on quizzes. And so what they want is to shuffle sections and shuffle the option order. You can shuffle questions. I do have to point out, though, that one of the things that you may run into is that if you don't have section breaks and you choose to shuffle questions and you have a question for the name of the student, like right here, we'll put name, it may shuffle that and put the name somewhere else in the quiz. And if you're okay with that, it's not really that big of a deal, but if you're okay with that, what you can do is you go up to the settings icon for your form, and on presentation, you're going to choose shuffle question order and then save. And what that will do is that every time the form is open for a new student, then it shuffles the questions so that the first question for one student is going to be different than the first question for a different student. And the question that I always get when I say that is that, will it know if I've turned on the quiz feature, how to put the correct answers and how to grade the quiz properly? And yes, it will do that. And for the people that don't like to shuffle the quiz like that, there is also the option of, if you click on this answer or this question, clicking on the More button and choosing shuffle option order. And what that does is, for each student that opens the quiz, green may not be the first answer, it might be blue or it might be purple, but it'll be different for each kid that opens the quiz. So that prevents kids from cheating a little bit. And so, like, for instance, if you can remember these in the order that they are, I'm going to remove the password protection from this quiz, and I'll open it so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'll hit preview. So we put in our name and hit next. And you'll see that even though when I typed the question earlier, green was the first response, now it's purple. If I close that and open it again and hit next, then the next go round, blue is the first answer on that question. And if I had multiple questions in this section, it would also shuffle them because I chose shuffle question order as well. So very helpful if you're trying to prevent a little cheating from happening in your classroom. And then the final thing that I was going to show you today is that many times I'll get K through 2 teachers that will say that they don't want to use forms because their kids can't read yet. And so trying to do a Google form on a Chromebook and getting a kindergarten or a first grader to log in and then let alone take a quiz is often difficult. But one of the things that Google Forms has done in the past year is they have allowed images to be inserted into questions and answers. So I'm going to call this a sight word quiz. And of course, you may have to guide the kids to get to this point in the quiz so that they can open the quiz. But once they get in, you could have a guided quiz that they answer one question at a time. And it could be sight words. So say, for instance, instead of a question, okay, I'm going to go over here to the right of the question and click this image icon. And I'm going to choose, on Google search, I'm going to choose a triangle. And I've done this before in a couple other videos that I've done on my YouTube channel, but I'm going to choose one of these triangles. I'll choose this green one. And we'll say that the idea here, and that's much too big, by the way, you can click on these and use the toggle points on the corners to resize. And so basically what we're saying is this shape, if we're given this shape, then down here in our answers, which of these is most like that shape. And so I can add another image here, and I'll do a search for, say, for instance, a tire. And we'll put the tire in there. And of course, that's going to be one of our wrong answers. Now, you don't really have to resize these because Google does try to scale these down since they are multiple choice question answers. And I'll choose another image, and in this case, we'll use a house. Okay. And we will use this house right here because it's obviously not a triangle. And then we'll add a third answer, and the third answer will be a sailboat. Now, if you don't want to use photographs, like these are all photos, and sometimes kids respond better at that age to clip art, don't forget you can go over here from on a Google search and click any type and change this to clip art, and we can get something that's a little bit more easier to compare to the shape. And so I'm going to use this one here, and so that would be our correct answer. And again, don't forget, if you turn this into a quiz up here in our settings and save, then I can go down here and click the answer key and tell it that option 3 is the correct answer. And so when our student sees this quiz, this is what they'll see. So here's our shape, and you could direct the kids and say, okay, at the top you'll see a green triangle. Which of those pictures most closely resembles that triangle? And so they can click to answer. And of course, you can always tell them that the big blue button is the button that they click to submit their answer at the end. And so you could do this for shapes and colors. You could do it for sight words. Even though I called it a sight word quiz, I didn't use it that way. But you could have a word in there. Okay, so say for instance, on our sight word list, one of the questions is tree. And on our answers, we could put a tree. Of course, I'm going to use clip art again. Okay, so we can have a tree. And then our next option could be something else altogether. You could make another option which is obviously not a tree, such as before we used the word tire. Okay. And again, set up your answer key. And so again, that becomes a sight word question. Okay. You may have to break this up for littler kids so that they don't get confused by the barrage of shapes. An easy way to do that, just like I did in my mastery quiz, is to go up here to this question and then choose to add a section break. Okay. And so now, if you put a section break after each question, they'll have one question at a time, and they can answer that one question at a time without getting confused by the barrage of shapes on the screen. So hopefully these tips are good for you guys. I know there are a lot of the things that I get questions about when I do workshops with teachers, and hopefully there's the things that you can use in your classroom. Thanks for joining us this week, and I'll make an announcement early on Monday morning about the webinar for next week, so hopefully you can join us next week. Until then, we'll see you next time.